The metaverse is emerging as the next big technology platform and promises to be the next frontier for human experiences on the internet. Into the Metaverse covers companies, technologies, and trends that are bringing these promises to life. Join creator and host Jonathan Ross-Friedman, founder and CEO of Super Social, as he interviews the brilliant minds that are building, shaping, and investing in the metaverse.
Welcome to Into the Metaverse. I'm Yon, CEO of Super Social and host of Into the Metaverse, with Matthew here today with me. Today, we're going to really make things a bit and bring you a new form of content that we hope is going to help educate and inspire our listeners and our fans about the future of immersive platforms and the 3D internet. In this first episode, in this deeper dive series, we're going to focus on a platform that we've discussed at length already on Into the Metaverse, which is Roblox. From its humble beginnings as Dynablox in 2004, all the way to a vibrant digital economy full of user-generated content, brand activations, advertising, and more, we're going to share our thoughts on where Roblox started, how it's gotten to where it is today, and what the future holds for the platform. As always, the following isn't financial advice, and it's just our opinions. We hope you're going to enjoy the conversation, insight, and analysis.
So let's get right into it. Welcome to this new format of podcast. I'm Matthew, as Jan said. We're going to kind of wind the clock back. We're going to give a brief history of the company. And then again, we're actually going to wind the clock back again. We're going to go back to the founding of when Roblox was founded, kind of the catalyst, the thought process behind it. We'll take you through the history, some of the key developments along the way, to where Roblox is today, go through what it looks like today, the KPIs, the brands, the IP on the platform. And then most importantly, we'll take you to what we think it's going to look like in the future. But we think that level setting the past is the best way to talk about the future. So let's wind the clock back. Roblox was founded in 2004 by Dave Baszucki and Eric Castle, as Jan said, under the name Dynablox, which I only actually learned by reading the company's S1 filing when they went public. The iOS version of Roblox was launched in 2012, the Android version in 2014. 2013 was a big year. That's when they launched the Developer Exchange. We'll get into that more in detail in a bit later. 2015, we had the Xbox release, and in 2023 is when PlayStation released. So it's and Roblox is even available on VR now with Meta Quest. So Roblox is pretty much available on every device, everywhere in the world, except for maybe mainland China and North Korea. That's probably the only two places you can't play Roblox at this point. So it's ubiquitous. It's on every device, everywhere, pretty much. So winding the clock back to really when Roblox was founded. And you honestly have to go even before that, because the seeds of Roblox were planted even before Dynablox was created in 2004. For those that don't know the background of Dave and Eric and some of the other co-founders, Keith Lucas and Tim Laduha, they worked at a company called Knowledge Revolution, which was a physics simulation software company. They founded it and they sold it to MSC Software, which I believe was then bought by Sun Microsystems. So it was all part of the dot-com craze roll-up of software internet companies in the Valley. And as I said, they developed an interactive physics software. And this was interesting because this was like it was a big light bulb moment to kind of to prove what can be done on the internet with technology at this point of what physics simulation can be. We take it for granted, all these immersive video games today, but go back to what video games looked like in the 90s to what they look like today. There's a lot of simulation technology that went into enabling that. And Roblox, the founders behind it, were some of the pioneers in that technology field. And with inspiration from sci-fi, from Arthur C. Clarke and Neil Stephenson, they thought about what a virtual world with social elements, with avatars powered by this new physics simulation software could really be and really look like. And I think one of the unspoken seeds of Roblox that I discovered in my research for this podcast was Dave was an early investor in Friendster as well, privately. And for those that don't know Friendster, it was a competitor to MySpace and Facebook that obviously did not survive. But regardless, I think that was probably a light bulb moment where you have this physics simulation strength, you have this vision of a social avatar platform with immersive physics, and you have all of this learning from Friendster. The seeds for Roblox were planted all the way back in 2006, 2004 even. And I just, when you kind of put that story together, a lot of people still have this vision that Roblox is this new company. It's only been relevant for a few years. But when you wind the clock back and really look at what they've done and where they've been and where their expertise is, this is by no means an overnight success. Yon, when you hear this backstory, this history, what comes to mind for you?
I think that the idea, we need to rewind and go back, right? In 2006, Facebook was born in 2004. It really started to pick up in 2005. 2006 is kind of when it really started to proliferate in universities and also starting to really become available globally. And it was a major phenomenon, right? Of course, you had other social networks at that time, MySpace, Friendster, FriendFeed, but Facebook obviously became the dominant player. And there you have a team, Dave Baszucki and everyone else that was involved in the inception of Dynablox, but also working on physics and simulation for a decade plus prior. You have a team that really comes from that simulation technologies. And I think it's so incredible that a group of technologists, hardcore, right? You were talking about simulation in the 80s and the 90s. And it's quite incredible that they were able to have that insight and connect to, we have that social thing and we have the simulation capabilities. And what if we can marry both of them? A very powerful insight, and which I think is underestimated on two levels, Matthew. One is how early they were in understanding that this is where the world is going, and social platforms can, should, and will be more immersive. And they obviously knew it's going to take time because from the beginning, they were very much focused on kids and young people, right? It was very educational driven where they came from. They didn't come from the gaming industry. They came from the technology side, which was very educational. And that being said, I do have the feeling that back then in 2006, when they started, I also feel that they may not have been aware of how long it will take until they are going to be in a position to get to where they are today, especially when you're able to see the dramatic growth of Facebook. So part of me thinks, yes, they were very much early. They may have been way too early. And I think as we're going to go through the story of Roblox today on the episode, it's only going to reinforce how incredible the journey that they've been through as a company, especially as a VC-backed company. We're talking about a company in 2006 founded at the beginning of the social media craze, mobile application in 2010. And here you have Roblox that really took 15 years to exit. Today, it's much more common to see private startups get to 10, 12 years and still are not going public. But back in the day, and I know for a fact that there were many, many VCs and investors who passed on Roblox as an opportunity. So giving a lot of credit for the insight that they had as a team, but also the tenacity to see through their vision for so long and be misunderstood for so long and ultimately getting to where they are today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point I was going to make later on in the episode to tie to a different point, but I know they took VC money, but even today, Dave and the family still controls about 2/3 of the voting power. So, they were personally wealthy. They were able to at least self-finance early on. And I think that also played a role, right? In, hey, if you're playing with house money, you can play the long game and you can take those bets that VCs may not. And if they want to invest, it's under the assumption that they're along for your ride. It's on your terms. And, the last conversation, again, I want to have is about the future of Roblox. Could it be acquired? That's a big talking point in the sense that Dave has a amazing vision for the future of the internet and the future of how we connect and how we play and how we socialize. And if anything ever were to happen, and if you were investing in Roblox in 2006, the same thing, you had to align with that vision or you're not along for the ride.
100%. And I also want to call out that, again, this is 2006. This is 2 years before the iPhone is launched, right? And if you look at Roblox today, 80% of Roblox's user base access Roblox every day on tablet and mobile, right? So that's another piece that we should be talking about as part of the conversation on Roblox, which is how they've made themselves continuously relevant as computing platforms have evolved. And I think would be interesting to talk about what the future holds as we're looking at the next paradigm, the next computing paradigm with spatial computers, VR, XR, and so on and so forth. And Roblox as a company, certainly has the track record of being able to make themselves relevant and adapt to the shifts of computing. And that is an incredible strength that very few companies have been able to adapt at that scale. So, Matthew, the first experience that, let's go a bit kind of history. The first experience Roblox had that was launched on the platform is called Crossroads. And it attracted the incredible amount of users that counts 20 users. There were 20 users in the first experience called Crossroads. And it's kind of incredible to see how far the platform has come. Today, 13 million experiences available and 72 million daily active users. And this was really something that was opening the opportunities of what's possible on the Roblox platform. But the main key milestone is the introduction of Roblox Studio, which is really the core, the beating heart of the Roblox platform, which is Roblox's game engine, essentially, but not only a game engine, it's a creation suite that also allows you to ultimately publish the experience all in one place, which is called Roblox Studio, which played an instrumental role in enabling Roblox to become, a UGC platform on a massive scale. But there was a lot of work to be done in order to make Studio come to life, right? The engine, a 3D engine, a physics-based engine, right? We like to explain to people who collaborate with Super Social that one of the beautiful things about the Roblox platform, it's a physics-based engine, so we can really create things that mimic the real world. It's not just, accidental animation. So the engine, the animation systems, the content curation, right? The ability to encourage creators of all ages to build stuff, all needed over time improvement, growth, enhancement, and really in a nutshell, Roblox needed to constantly reinvent itself. And we're just talking about its ability to evolve with computing platforms, right? Because back in the day, in 2006, we're talking still about the browser internet, right? We're talking about the browser world, and at Super Social, we like to talk about from desktop to the browser to mobile, and then all the way to virtual worlds. And Roblox was really able to reinvent itself. And the team led by Dave really thought about how they can grow and improve their financials. And this is one of the unspoken elements of Roblox's success, is its ability to sustain itself and being able to really not only build a virtual economy that powers the creation of developers and creators on the platform, but really ultimately that allowed Roblox to be profitable from very early on, which ultimately allowed them to be less dependent on venture capital. And so, Roblox started to build its virtual economy around their platform currency called Robux in 2007. So, about a year after founding. And it was really a mechanism to reward players for participation, offering subscriptions such as the Builders Club, which is now called Roblox Premium, which allows you to basically get added benefits as a user and Robux currency every month. And the other big milestone they've had was expanding its avatar economy to allow for customization of clothing, body types, body colors, and more, and really unleashing the beginning of a massive wave of digital self-expression, right? There are already billions of digital accessories, avatar items purchased every year on the Roblox platform. And we know the numbers, right? 1 out of 5 users change their avatar outfits every day. 1 out of 2, 50% of the platform audience change their avatar items and appearance every week. So really, we're looking at a real world behavior happening in a virtual context, although very few people only change their clothes in real life once a week. So, we're not there yet. And 2013 was really a year of big event. It was the launch of the developer exchange, the DevX, as it's called in the ecosystem, which was really enabled for the first time 6 years after launching its economy, right? And the ability to monetize. It was the first time that Roblox enabled developers to take their earnings in Robux, in the platform currency, and convert or exchange it into real world money. And by that, really not only enabling young people to learn to code and learn how to build games, but for the first time, inspiring a whole new generation of creators, mostly young people, kids, sometimes as young as 12, 14, and encouraging them to become business owners, business builders, entrepreneurs, pay for college tuition, invest, and more. And that is something, Matthew, that I really like to reiterate on when I talk to people who not necessarily underestimate Roblox, but probably show some level of lack of understanding about what really makes Roblox unique. And what makes Roblox unique above all the technical infrastructure that the company was able to build over the last 18 years now, is this incredibly passionate community of creators and developers that is not only having a certain sense of self-fulfillment because they are able to create stuff that launches on the platform, but also because suddenly it becomes a way for them to make a living, join the workforce, build their own businesses. And that is something I fundamentally believed already 10 years ago when I started my first company, a computer company that was all about empowering kids to build and code their own computer. I've already had that core belief that we are moving into a world where young people are going to start businesses and make money. And we are now at a massive inflection point with Roblox really proving for the first time that that can happen at scale and that can happen in the most complex arenas of the internet, which is 3D simulation and 3D multiplayer world that historically have been really gated to a small population of developers.
There's a huge population of kids that paid for college by building experiences on Roblox, right? And I mean, we work, you look at the ecosystem of some of the most successful developers. They're probably now maybe in their 20s, but when they hit their peak of success, they were in their teens. They played, they experimented, they learned, they taught themselves, they watched YouTube videos on how to build things, and they built cool stuff that resonated with the community. And now they have these games that have tens of or hundreds of thousands of CCUs on a daily basis. It's really democratized the ability to build 3D immersive experiences that are social, that are shared, that are the definition of Matthew Ball's metaverse in his book. It is truly, if not the only one of the few platforms today. I mean, you could throw Fortnite Creative in there, but it lacks persistence. It doesn't have progression saving, or it barely does, right? And so, it's one of the few platforms today that really checks all the boxes of what a metaverse truly is. And I know a lot of people have gotten turned off to the term metaverse and how it's been adopted by certain people in the industry. But regardless of what term you want to use, the immersive internet, the 3D internet, the metaverse, Roblox is the most advanced of all of those platforms, the largest. And all of these things that we discussed, these technologies, these features that they built along the way, were not by accident. It was by design. It was with a vision, and it was intentional. And this is why when people say, look at this platform, they're going to compete with Roblox and take market share, it's like, you don't understand what it takes to really compete and build what Roblox has built.
Yeah, and here's a little anecdote for our audience. 2017, April, I visit San Francisco, and a couple of years prior, in 2015, I had the first chance of being connected to Dave Baszucki, the founder and CEO of Roblox. And in 2017, when I came to San Francisco, I reached out to Dave and I said, I'd love to grab coffee. And I went to their previous San Mateo office, 2017. Roblox is still largely unknown in the world of tech. And I come into their headquarters. I go and sit down with Dave, and he shows me these little figurines that they built for the first time that are based on character from the games that they're now going to sell on Amazon. And he was very proud of it. And he was like, this is going to be so cool. This is going to be big. And that was really yet another inflection point of how Roblox got into the world of making physical products, which they now checked out of for a bunch of different reasons that we'll talk about as part of their aging up strategy. But I had a great joy. And honestly, even at 2017, when I was meeting Dave and hearing about his vision for the platform, it still felt very much like a platform where kids make games for kids. What I think I underestimated at that point is how rapidly this scale up can happen. Of course, with the acceleration being driven by COVID, and we'll talk about that as well. But it was really phenomenal to see already in 2017 how powerful the community of creators was, and Dave's vision of where we want to take the platform.
Absolutely. And I think, the next topic we'll get into is also just as important, because we've talked about technologies, features that all went in, but a lot of technology companies are also successful because of the people, the management, the vision, and the structure they put in place to enable the entrepreneurship. And I know you want to kind of dive in here.
Yeah, and look, I think Roblox is really unique, not just as a platform and a community, but also because they have really strong values that are coming all the way directly from Dave as a CEO. And there's really 4 core values that they care about. One, respect the community. I think Roblox fundamentally understands that their success as a business hinges on its ability to attract and retain and grow its developer community. Because it's a marketplace and it's a two-sided platform, very much like YouTube in a different way, though. Roblox doesn't produce content of their own. They used to some extent, but it's always primarily have been a UGC platform. And so respecting the community and making sure that the community of developers still continues to look at Roblox as the place to build, but the users look at Roblox as the place to come and connect and socialize and play is at the very heart of its future success as well. Taking the long view, it's their second value. And I think that when you look at Roblox as a company founded in 2006, only going public in 2001, really primarily due to the acceleration given from COVID. Otherwise, Roblox may have still been a private company. You have to have a real long-term view. And I think what makes me excited and continue to be excited by the platform is that there is this genuine belief in my mind that Dave continues to look at Roblox in a long-term view. And I think that message comes across pretty clearly in every RDC, Roblox developer conference that happens every year. Their third value is about taking responsibilities. And, I think a key part of that is Roblox's importance on its employee base, thinking about the platform with a sense of ownership. And being able to attract a capable organization and scale that is an incredibly difficult thing. And so having an organization that believes and follow those values and take ownership is a real strength that the platform has. And then lastly, their fourth value is getting stuff done, right? Nothing happens, or execution is the mother of success, as Tony Robbins likes to say. So execution is something Roblox does, and they do it well. And I think they do it consistently. The other thing that is really interesting is Roblox organization is really organized as pods of key functions or key internal startups, like economy, growth, engine, and that is really focused on getting things done. They have about roughly 6 small teams of 10 to 20 people each that operate almost like startups. Now, obviously, that is part of a bigger, wider organization, but it's a really fascinating model of how they are able to really have contained teams that are working on certain key pieces that ultimately connect together. So there's a really interesting structure there, Matthew, that I think is no less important than the actual product that they're building, because as we know, products are built by teams, and teams need to be organized with great culture and an effective mode of operation.
I think that structure also plays into the values, right? If you have a ton of bureaucracy, you can't have a sense of ownership, right? It's hard to take the long view, because if you have to impress your manager 6 levels above you, you're going to do the things that are trackable on a spreadsheet. But if you have small contained teams that are like startups where everyone has a sense of ownership and there's not a lot of bureaucracy, that's how those values become operationalized. And so I think again, I'm going to say this a lot. It's not an accident. It's by design. And there is a lot to learn from that in terms of building a culture like that, where it's not just ownership in the product and the company, but it's ownership and accountability in the people you work with in your small team. So moving on to where the business is today. And we've covered this in depth. We did an episode a few months ago, a deep dive on the 2023 results, where we talked all about the KPIs. We went all in depth. So I'm not going to list off all of the KPIs again, but just from a high level, the key trends that are going on, the key relevant metrics that people should be tracking for Roblox for success, and kind of what's happened. And I think the high level overview is that every key metric was growing nicely before COVID. And COVID hit, and it was just a shift change. It was a pull forward of several years of growth in about 3 months. They went from having 18, 19 million DAO to having 30, 40, 50 million DAO in just a matter of quarters. And so the most interesting part of that pull forward of growth has been, and even myself, when I was a financial analyst at the time, I looked at it and I said, there's going to be some give back. There's going to be some plateau. The most interesting part is that all of the metrics kept growing from that new high watermark. It wasn't the case of most gaming companies where you have this massive pull forward and then some regression towards the mean and some new plateau to build off of. Roblox had this huge pull forward, this huge growth, and then kept growing from there. And so as we look out, they're on pace to grow DAO and revenue and engagement hours by 20% or more this year. And that's kind of their model, is to keep growing all of the key inputs to the model 20% a year. If we look at the user metrics, the DAO, the daily active users, and the growth, the over 13 users and even the over 17 users are growing much faster than the younger at this point. I had someone ask me a question do we think the numbers aren't real? And that's not a question that I'm positioned to answer. Like if that's your bear case on Roblox, that you don't trust the numbers that they're reporting, I got a condo to sell you in Brazil. But other than that, I think overall what the metrics are showing is that they're successfully not only aging up the user base by the existing users getting older, which is a factor, but because the shift in the percentage of the base is getting older, that also means the net new user adds are also coming in at an older age group. And I think that's really important, particularly as there's an influx of brands and IP and everything into the platform. The geographic expansion is another factor. Roblox is available in basically 200 countries today, all parts of the world. I think Brazil is the second largest. Jan, you say this a lot. Brazil is like the second largest by DAU after North America now. So you mentioned mobile being the largest platform. A lot of players actually do play on multiple devices, though. We have seen data from Game Analytics and others that show that. And in terms of demographic, which I think is the most important part that stands out the most with Roblox, aside from just it's young. Yes, even though the older demographic is growing, it's still that older group is still 17 to 25, which is still quite young. But demographically, it's fairly evenly split between those that identify as male and female on the platform. And that's really interesting because you compare that to Fortnite, which does skew a bit older than Roblox for sure, but some data has showed 70, 80% male on the platform. And so it really does underscore that, this is it is the most engaging platform on the internet in terms of engagement per day per user, but it's also reaching an extremely broad audience of Gen Alpha and younger Gen Z. The other things I just want to mention, in terms of, where the bookings were last year, 3.5 billion of bookings in 2023. That was a growth of 23%. As I mentioned, on pace for 20% growth this year. They're generating EBITDA. They're generating free cash flow now. They went through an investment cycle already to build redundancy in their data centers. I think one of the things that scared me at first is the fact they built all their infrastructure. I was like, that's a lot. I mean, in this day and age where the AWS and Google and Azure, you build your own infrastructure, but it's a differentiating factor. And they went through an investment cycle recently to make sure that they have the redundancy and the network in place to support this growth. And then lastly, just in terms of monetization, there's a couple key monetization avenues that are available today, that are available to all creators, brands, IP, et cetera, that are coming to the platform. One-time purchases such as in-game items. You can also do game passes and subscriptions. Obviously, all the avatar economy. I'll throw out one more stat that you didn't before with UGC, which is in the first 9 months of 2023, there were 600 million avatar changes per day on the platform. So, that accounts for multiple changes per day per user, but still it's just insane how much the user base is engaged with UGC and how much they really value almost their digital avatar more so than their personal style at this point. Emotes are an emerging area of monetization, in-game advertising as well, and brand activations. Important to note on monetization, just to kind of summarize the avenues to monetize. This is from direct spend stuff, but in 2023, there were on average 14.5 million monthly paying users on the platform. It's roughly 350 million now. Roblox doesn't report the monthly active users anymore. So that is a very low pay rate. And so this underscores the need for monetization from avenues that aren't direct spend. So advertising, brand integrations, all these things that are emerging that are really helping studios, brands tap into the user base, do so commercially viably and really build business assets. Whereas before it was quite tough to build a business.
Yeah, it's roughly 5% of the monthly, right, who are actual paying users. And that's mostly what developers need to live off, and why it's so important that Roblox really continues to grow and scale and as quickly as possible get to a place where there's 1 billion monthly, right? If those percentages will continue to be the case, right, you want to get to a place where there's 50 to 100 million people who actually spend money on the platform to be able for Roblox to not only become a much, much bigger platform and a utility, but also for a thriving ecosystem of creators to continue and grow and be retained on the platform. Let's switch gears and talk a bit about the state of brands and IP on Roblox, which is obviously a incredibly interesting phenomena over the past couple of years. Let's start with some numbers. First and foremost, cumulatively, 1.8 billion visits to branded experiences on the platform. 1.8 billion visits. Right, that's a staggering number, and it shows how the popularity of branded experiences have emerged over especially the last 3 years. 69 brand activations on the platform in the fourth quarter alone of 2023. And some of the opportunities for brands and IP owners on the platform include shop experiences and UGC activations, right? So the ability to come in and essentially set up almost like a virtually native 3D shop where you can sell your virtual goods and merchandise as a brand. You can sell that as a bespoke shop or in the general marketplace of Roblox. You can think of it as the mall. So you can have your own shop and you can sell it in the marketplace of the mall. Events, these are typically one time or a very short duration event like the fashion show that Super Social created with Gucci and Cora. Time-based experiences, these are typically celebratory of a certain product launch or a movie and can go anywhere from 30 to 90 days typically, where it provides an opportunity to celebrate marquee marketing moments of the brand on the platform. And then, of course, the holy grail is to build a successful, persistent world that allows you to really nurture and evolve a community of fans, of super fans around your brand or IP, and with the idea of engaging in monetization either in game or through advertising or even brand integration inside your game and all of the things that you talked about earlier, Matthew, in terms of monetization. With all of the excitement of brands coming into the platform, we are still at a very early exploratory and experimental stage of brands on the platform. And more generally, in this next era of the internet, as you know, Matthew, I like to call it kind of the 3D internet. And I think it's really, really early days. And we are really treating Roblox, and we encourage others to think about Roblox as almost like a large scale MVP of the future of the internet. And to an extent, Roblox is already a metaverse experiment in and of itself. It's interoperable. It has a thriving virtual economy. It brings people into a world where they can create. It's a social network that is avatar based. And it's all of those things in one place. And that is why Roblox is not only interesting commercially at the moment, obviously, but it's also interesting at an internet level to see really how far Roblox can go. And brands really play, and IP owners as well, they really play a key role in popularizing and making the Roblox platform visible and relevant to the wider world. And it's interesting to see how much attention is given in the media to brands and IP who come into the Roblox platform, but how little the scale of the user base that these brand and IP experiences capture in the Roblox platform. I mean, if we look at the top 100 games on the Roblox platform, almost most of them, if not all of them, are primarily native Roblox experiences, meaning these are games that have been built by the community of developers. That has nothing to do with any brand or IP. Now, it's probably not 100%, but most of the top 100 games on the platform are like that. But that just shows and reinforces, Matthew, what I'm saying, which is how important the role that brands and IP owners play in expanding the narrative of what is Roblox, why it's exciting, what's important about it, and why brands and IP owners should really pay attention and not take what they see with Roblox as a hand-waving, oh, it's just a fad or it's just a platform for kids. But what if we're right? What if it is the next stepping stone of where the internet is heading, and Roblox will become a platform with 1 billion users?
Yeah, I think that's the key question, right? Because if it's kind of like saying in 2013, 2014, you thought Facebook would be capped and it wouldn't expand beyond a core demo. It's kind of the same, maybe even before that, honestly. It's kind of the same argument. And I think that as you start to think about, if you're a brand, and this is a different conversation that we're going to have later, but as you start to think less of Roblox as a game platform and more of it as the primary social network for Gen Alpha and Gen Z, and we wrote about this on our blog recently, right? It's that when you start to have that mentality shift and you think about where these younger internet users spend their time, they engage, they communicate, they socialize, they will eventually shop there. They will eventually work in these platforms. This is eventually how they're going to engage in the real world economy. And that is why brands need to start thinking about how they want to be in these places, whether it's Roblox or Fortnite. But if you're not thinking about it today, I'm not going to say you're late because it's still early, but if you're not thinking about it, you might get caught off guard when it is too late. And it still is quite early. I mean, if you look at the total number of activations on Roblox, it's somewhere in the hundreds. I think it's 300 something if you count purely branded experiences. It's like 600 something if you count brand integrations. That's what Geek's number shows. And, if regardless of which number you pick, there's millions and millions of brands out there, right? And so it doesn't matter which number you pick. It just underscores that it's very early. But I think the other thing to note is that there's also lots of brands and IP owners that are at different stages of their immersive and Roblox journeys. And I think this is the interesting part, and something that if you haven't started yet, you can start to learn from and reach out to us and we'll talk to you about it. But there's brands that have done little marketing activations. It's cool. You get a lot of press. It's a short-term win. It can highlight a marketing moment. But as you start to think about how you convert a marketing asset into a business asset, it can't be a timed experience. It can't be just a UGC shop. You need to find a way to authentically and natively engage with Roblox users and engage with this audience and convert them into super fans and convert those into monetizable super fans. And I think as you start to go through the gears and go through that conversation, we're seeing the most innovative brands do that today and think about the next evolution of brands on the platform. And I think that's really when it gets interesting. And as we get into in the next section about future monetization on the platform, commerce is coming. This is where the brands that are thinking about it today are really going to be successful, I think.
Yeah. And, it's certainly the case that Roblox is also growing as a marketing channel, right? And we're seeing it. We're seeing the brands we worked with. We're seeing all of the brands that are coming into the platform. We're seeing the growth of Roblox as a channel to promote your movie, your product, your brand, you name it, right? Time-based or persistent. That's part of the appeal of Roblox as a platform, right? And so when people think about the Roblox platform, if you're a developer, a brand, an investor, or just a curious professional in the industry, the way we encourage you to think about Roblox is it's not a one type of platform. You can come in because you really want to create an immediate value through impression for the movie you launch or the new apparel brand that targets, Gen Z or Gen Alpha. So you can think of it as a premier marketing channel for that younger demographics, and that would help you pursue one type of strategy. You can also be a movie studio with IP, and you're thinking, how do I extend my IP? How do I monetize my IP in new ways? Roblox is a way to do that, right? And that would involve a different type of strategy than if you just want to promote awareness for your brand. You can be in the very future a brand that looks at Roblox as a platform to monetize and actually sell goods, because we know that Roblox is introducing in 2025 real world commerce integration. You can be a brand or IP that simply want to engage and nurture a community around your content and build relationship without necessarily a business objective that involves generating money. And I think that's the beauty of the platform, right? And we haven't even talked about music and what you are able to pursue on the education front. And if you listen to what Roblox is saying, especially Dave Baszucki, they're thinking of Roblox as a premier global platform for immersive connection and communication, where all sorts of content experiences and shared experiences can come to life. And that is a big, audacious vision. In one of the podcasts I've done with Dan Sturman, the CTO of Roblox, I asked Dan, what needs to be true for Roblox to get to 1 billion users? And Dan he called out 3 things. And by the way, when we talk about Roblox as a utility, we're talking about like what Facebook became, right? Like what Gmail is. It's a utility, not just a place to create content or consume content. And Dan mentioned 3 things that I think are worth calling out. One, it has to become a utility, right? In order for Roblox to get to 1 billion users, Roblox believed that it has to become a utility, meaning it's not a place to just come and play games. It's a place to socialize, connect, express yourself, and do many more things. The second thing he mentioned is that it needs to be available on all platforms. Every single device ecosystem Roblox needs to be a part of. If you look at Roblox today, it's already on Xbox and PlayStation on console. There is certainly the belief that Roblox can be available on Nintendo Switch at some point. On spatial computing, they are on MetaQuest and most likely will be on Vision Pro at some point. They are already on Android and the iPhone iOS ecosystem, which is basically covering the whole world when it comes to mobile. They are available on PC by downloading their client on whatever browser or computer you have. And they will be on any other computing platform that is relevant for their users. Of course, 80%, as we said, of users access Roblox through mobile and tablet. And then the third component that Dan mentioned on the path to 1 billion users was that anyone can create, not just professional developers. And I think when we think about Roblox as a utility of creation, obviously a barrier to entry is ability of someone to write code and script in Luau, the programming language of the Roblox engine. And so I certainly think that it would be prudent to assume that Roblox is going to continue and evolve the ways through which people can create on the platform, because the platform as an open marketplace really depends on the ability for everyone to come in and create. Now, that doesn't mean individual necessarily, but it could be studios and corporations working through individual developers or studios like Super Social and others. And so in summary, these are the three things that Roblox's CTO called out on the path to 1 billion users is Roblox has to become a utility. Roblox has to be available on every single platform. And Roblox has to be a place where anyone, anywhere can create.
Absolutely. And I think to the last point, a big thing that they're pushing recently, and it's not just vaporware, it's real, is generative AI on the platform. And what they're trying to do to reduce the barriers to creation. And obviously they've done a lot to reduce the barriers to 3D immersive world creation. But to your point, you still need to know the coding infrastructure. You need to know how to use Roblox Studio. You need to know Lua, et cetera, today to build on the platform. But, the holy grail is a no-code environment, right? Because then that really, takes you from the many thousand, whatever in the annual report, they tell you how many thousands of creators there are. But that's what takes you from that number to tens and hundreds of millions of creators on the platform, because you're just reducing the barriers to entry so much by doing that. And, alongside no code development is also no code translation, which they already do, right? They already do text translation, and that's been a huge enabler of the geographic expansion of Roblox and the user base. I remember some of the earnings calls in the past where they talked about once they started doing automatic translation of Japanese, the Japanese DAO inflected. Once they started doing automatic translation in countries like Indonesia, people don't realize Indonesia has like 400 million people, right? As soon as you start doing automatic translation of these local languages, you saw a huge inflection in the growth rates. And I think the same thing will come with voice chat once they nail the technology. I think the same thing will come with other features that are part of the game. As soon as they can make it programmatic and simple and native, and to your point, a utility with AI, that really is a huge factor in the next inflection point, I think, in their growth. And other key technologies as well that I think are important. We talked about how they've built on their own infrastructure. That's going to be a real challenge, I think, as they scale personally. I mean, I'm sure Dan has views on as the CTO, but, owning your own infrastructure and scaling it from tens of millions of DAO to 72 million DAO to eventually 1 billion DAO potentially, right? It's going to be a huge endeavor. And, I think that's going to be a huge challenge that, they're going to have to figure out how they do that efficiently, how they potentially are offloading more of their compute to cloud services at that point. And then I also just think, connectivity solutions getting better and cheaper, right? There's still, if you look at the Ericsson data, right, there's several billion users with access to 5G now, but it's still about only half the population of the world. And so as more and more people get access to high-speed internet, where, we have conversations, right, that when we're building experiences, you have to consider the lowest end user, the lowest end device that's on the platform. There's still iPhone 6s out there. People don't realize this, right? And so as the connectivity gets better, the ability to better optimize for, all sorts of devices that are out there, I think these are all key enabling technologies of getting to that billion DAO threshold.
There is something, though, that I think is quite complex with what Roblox is trying to do, which is, on the one hand, they want to push up. And what I mean by push up, they want to push forward the quality and complexity of experiences that are being built on the platform, right? So continuously enabling creators to build ever more expansive, stunning, and complex games and experiences on the platform, right? That will have to continue and happen through scripting and coding, right? And writing software. I find it hard to believe that anytime soon, maybe in the very, very long term, like 10 to 20 years from now, we might see the ability of AI to enable you to build quickly, rapidly, with zero code, a complex virtual world experience with game design. And I think that may never happen. Maybe it will happen, but it will certainly take a long time. So Roblox continues to want to push the boundaries of what's possible on the platform, right? I think it's safe to say that Roblox wants to become a platform where people can build experiences similar to what they do on PC on Steam. Roblox is going to have to be that in order to continue and attract the very best developers. And to retain the very best developers. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Roblox wants to continuously lower the barrier to entry. We just saw recently, they're now enabling anyone to create content and avatar items for the general Roblox marketplace, right? The mall. And so they're pushing downwards on enabling anyone to come in and create. And that is very, very complex. So we have these competing, interesting things that Roblox is really pushing on both. On creation of experiences, they want incredible, very high-end experiences that can compete with other platforms like Steam, Unreal Engine, etc. On the other hand, they want to make it available so anyone can create something and monetize and make a living. And then you also have on the demographic. Roblox wants to continue to be a dominant platform to attract, 8, 7, 6, 5-year-olds. But they also want to retain and age up and attract users who are 25 plus years of age. That is an incredible level of complexity. And I think the biggest question mark on the path to 1 billion users is, what is the probability that Roblox can accomplish that? Can they become a platform that attracts all of these different audiences, these different creators, right? High end and the very low end. And can they attract 5-year-olds and 35-year-olds and do it all in one singular universal platform? To me, that is the billion user question to some extent. And what I think time will tell if Roblox is able to do that. We are certainly excited about that prospect, but I think a lot of things need to be true beyond those 3 things mentioned by their CTO in order for Roblox to become a billion users platform.
One thing that has to change also is developer economics. And this is a big criticism when you talk to investors, whether it's public investors looking at Roblox or private investors looking at studios, whether it's other developers in the industry looking at Roblox as a potential platform to build on, IP owners. They want to understand the economics of the platform, and they benchmark against mobile or they benchmark against console PC, and the net payouts to developers are a lot worse, right? And so the standard, and I remember I think it was Bloomberg published when everyone was trying to break down the 30% commissions from Apple, they published a history of the 30% commission, and it dates back to Bandai Namco making cartridges for one of the early Nintendo systems, and that's where the 30% comes from, back in the 80s, and it's just stuck ever since. You've seen on PC, there's been commission wars with Steam getting aggressive and Epic getting aggressive, charging 12%, right, and waiving licensing fees for the Unreal Engine and whatnot if you publish exclusively through Epic Game Store. Roblox has gotten better, but last year they paid out in between 20 and 25% of their bookings. If you kind of do the math on an experience, in the best case, 20% is kind of what your payout ratio looks like. And so it's not great, but I think it's also, you have to caveat it in the sense that, right, all of these tools that Roblox provides, the engine, the user acquisition, the curation, the physics, everything that's included in Studio, everything that you get from building on Roblox is part of that, what they're taking. Whereas if you build a mobile game, the 30% that Apple takes is before all of those other expenses. You still got to get a Unity license. You still got to do UA. You still got to do all these other things. And so when you start to think about what the net profitability of building on Roblox is, it already today is probably close to comparable with casual mobile games, for a successful game. And it's only getting better. I mean, this has been communicated by Roblox, but I think when people start to think about the types of engagements are kind of comparable to casual mobile games anyways, and you look at the payer ratios, you look at the session lengths, it all kind of points to that being the closest comp today. The payouts are the profitability is comparable. And so I think, as we look ahead, it's only going to get better, right? Because as the business scales, they're going to increase the DevX rate, hopefully. They're going to make it better for developers. But, curious, Yon, what you think here, how you've been here for building in the space longer than I. What do you think about how it's trended and where it's going?
That has been a consistent point raised by investors, venture investors, people who are investing in companies that potentially operate on the Roblox platform where, hey, Roblox takes these 70, 75% of your income. And ultimately that's true, right? These are the economics on the platform. But I want to highlight a couple of things. To build a multiplayer 3D social game today, I can do it on Unity or I can do it on Unreal, right? I can do it on both. But we're talking about, and again, I'm talking about a 3D multiplayer game, regardless of the genre. We're talking about several years of development and multi-million-dollar investment. So it may be 3 to 5 years before I go live with any game of that nature, and potentially 20, 25 plus $1 million in funding. And that's before we're even talking about marketing costs and stuff like that. Sure, you have the Pal Worlds of the world, which are exception to the rule, right? I'm not talking about those exceptions. That's what we're looking for. Sure, I have a bigger piece of the pie from the revenue I make, but the stakes are much, much higher, in orders of magnitude higher. On Roblox, on the other side, I can build a 3D multiplayer game at a fraction of the time of the cost. I can do it for a few $100,000 and within 5-6 months of development. And sure, I will probably make less money per game, but the economics, the entire economics are different. It's not an apple to apple. And I think that's what people need to keep in mind is, as you think about Roblox as a potential platform to build games, it's not a apple to apple comparison to other platforms. And that is something that you've highlighted where, yeah, Roblox takes all that piece. But as a developer on the platform, I don't need to worry about the App Store fees, Google, iOS. I don't need to worry about moderation. I don't need to worry about off-platform user acquisition, right? Roblox does that. And I basically build a game with a captive user base of 72 million daily active users that have already downloaded the Roblox app. So sure, it doesn't mean it's easy to make money and have commercial successes on the Roblox platform, but I don't think there's anywhere that is easy. But it's certainly a different type of economic structure and unit economics that you need to consider when we're comparing Roblox to a mobile studio or a PC studio and so on and so forth. But the most beautiful thing is that none of these are mutually exclusive. You can be a company that builds Roblox games while building a PC game, while building a console game. Now, very few companies do all of that at the same time, unless you're a very big publisher. But the point I'm trying to make is that I understand the skepticism and some of the downside effect of having such a small piece of the revenue generated on the platform. I certainly understand from Roblox's perspective why that is the revenue share. I do not expect for the economics from Roblox to change over time. Maybe. I would bet more on the fact that Roblox will continue to find ways to provide the monetization and revenue opportunities for developers on the platform. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe they will change the economics of the rev share split. But I think before they do that, they're going to really try and figure out what other revenue streams we can introduce. And I think we're seeing that. Immersive ads have been introduced. Engagement revenue has been introduced. They just introduced subscriptions. They're now introducing monetization of marketplace to all developers and creators. So what I'm saying consistently is that Roblox is committed to finding more ways for how developers make money. And I think they will continue to squeeze that lemon as long as they can before they run out of ideas, which will ultimately force them to rethink the revenue split on the platform between them and between developers.
Makes sense. And that's a nice segue to kind of the next topic and future monetization on the platform. And we talked about commerce before, but I wanted to come back to it and kind of dive in a bit deeper. It's something that I talked about at length when we did the podcast in December of last year, kind of the look ahead to 2024. But, I'll just reiterate my view from then. It still holds, is that I think that if Roblox can make commerce successful, and again, that's a big if with a capital I, but if it's successful, it's going to shift the level of brand investment, because now and you saw this with Facebook too, when Facebook ads became scientifically proven enough and quantitatively proven enough that you can convert to real world business outcomes, you saw a flood of investment. That's when the ad network really took off, is when brands could see the value in advertising and direct conversion to e-commerce sales. That's when that part of the business at Facebook really took off. And so I think Roblox is positioned to be in a similar boat. Now, obviously, lots of ifs. There's a lot of technology stack that has to be built. But if they can prove it and they can launch something successful next year, I really do think that changes the game and the scale of investment. And not only just the scale of investment, but where the conversations have. We're fortunate that some of the brands we work with, up to the CEO, are engaged. And, the CEO of Elf Beauty was on CNBC on Jim Cramer's show talking about having the best performing branded game on Roblox, which was awesome for us because as their partner on that, one of their partners on that game. But, In terms of, I think for most brands that are activating on Roblox, it's still largely contained to the marketing department and innovation department. And that's not a bad thing. It's just the state of where it is. And I do think that if the commerce conversation gets proven and the case studies are there to show that you can really drive profitable conversion to real world business outcomes, it's no longer just the marketing department and the innovation department. It's the chief revenue officer, it's the COO, it's the CEO, and it's the board, and it's the C-suite as a whole that has to be involved as thinking about Roblox holistically as a part of their go-to-market. And I think that's what's super interesting to me about commerce.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people are asking about this real-world commerce integration. I'm very excited about it. I think I've been talking about Roblox for a long time at the intersection of social, entertainment, and commerce, primarily virtual commerce. Now it's evolving to physical commerce. And I think this is going to be a big, big, big test. That being said, I think it's important to manage expectations. Let's be real. 72 million daily active users are not coming to Roblox because it's their place of choice to buy the next pair of jeans or their cosmetics product. It's not. It may never necessarily become the go-to place, which is why I think in the short term, I envision a really, really low conversion rates from users to actually buying stuff. I mean, just look at the 5% we talked about. From the monthly active users, about 5% estimated are actually spending money on the platform. I wouldn't be surprised if the conversion to physical commerce purchase on the platform is going to be 0.5%. Now, that being said, it could well be that 0.5% is going to generate incredible amount of revenue because you're talking about buying real goods. It could be a $10, it can be a $20, it could be a $30, especially as Roblox's demographics continue to evolve beyond 17, where you really, as a young adult, start to have your own wallet, more independent versus relying on your parents' wallet. It could well be that the per user revenue from real commerce on the platform is going to surpass people's wildest imagination, even if the conversion rate from user to paying user is going to be dramatically lower. And it's because real world commerce is just in orders of magnitude bigger than virtual commerce. Now, I do believe that both of these will continue to grow. And so I would say in the short term, the next 3 years, I would be very cautious on expectations on how much can be driven from real world commerce on Roblox. In the longer term, the next 7 to 10 years, I'm very bullish on what that could mean for Roblox, as long as Roblox maintains a dominant role with 13 to 24-year-olds, and especially if they are able to attract and retain the 24 to 35-year-olds, where the spend is going to be at a whole different level.
Yeah, I mean, we see it today with older Gen Z, right? Their primary shopping app is now TikTok, right? They're scrolling through stuff, they're finding stuff, and they're buying it within the app, and they're doing billions and billions of dollars of GMV of even e-commerce sales through TikTok now. And I think that didn't happen overnight. There were apps in China, live streaming apps were doing this 5-6 years ago at some point, right? And so it definitely has taken time to build the audience and then build the platform. But I agree that over the next 5-7 years, as this core demo of Roblox users continues to get older, they enter the workforce, they have their own disposable income. This is their primary social platform. And as long as that remains the case, I see no reason to not believe that this will be, just like we've seen with other platforms, this will be where they shop, where they look for jobs, where they potentially work through Roblox. Who knows, right? They go to school. I think all of these things are possible and probable over the next 5 to 7 years, so long as Roblox retains its relevance and stays true to the community as it does it. And so we've talked a lot about the good things that Roblox does, the opportunities, how it's grown, where it's come from. There are challenges, and I think these are important things to talk about with the platform today, the challenges they face. There's been a lot of lawsuits. There's a lawsuit recently. Someone was alleging that, what they're doing effectively constitutes child labor and all these sorts of things. We know that Roblox spends a lot of money on protecting and civility and security, but curious your thoughts around some of these challenges like child safety, IP protections. There was a report from Navic earlier this year about all of the unlicensed, we can call it inspired works from other IP. And, and I think this all boils down to kind of what we were saying about the community. Roblox is in a tough spot where they have to balance the community demands, focus, and concerns against those of investors.
Look, The exciting thing about Roblox, which is also the challenge about the platform, is the fact that it's a Wild West. That's its magic. Everything happens. It happens fast. I like to say that Roblox is the rapid experimentation and the pace of innovation on Roblox is unlike any other platform in that nature, right? 3D immersive. Typically it takes time, right? Again, building in weeks or month versus years, like people are typically used to in Unity and Unreal. So the pace of change, the pace of innovation, the pace of experimentation is unlike anything else that have been around in these type of platforms. The other thing, and that's its magic of the platform. The other thing is you're talking about still a very young demographic, a very young platform, right? A lot of the creators, maybe a big portion of the creators are under 18, teenagers, youth, kids who are playing around, messing around. And so I don't think that when a 15-year-old create a Dragon Ball inspired game on the platform, they are consciously telling themselves, I'm copycatting or I'm creating an unofficial, unlicensed, and that's bad. Quite the opposite. They celebrate, they love their IP and that they love the IP and they're like, I'm just going to go and build something with it, right? That's really, I think, the nature of where it's coming from. Now, I'm sure there's potentially bad actors within that. I'm not going to dismiss it. But I do believe that there's this genuine appetite and desire of young people who are like, oh my God, I love Dragon Ball. I love Mickey Mouse so much. Now, some brands are going to embrace it, like Netflix did with the Korean show. And people ask Netflix, why are you allowing this to happen? And they're like, what are you talking about? We love this. Let them do, let them build, let them create, right?
It's the modern version of fan fiction. I mean, really what it is. And it's for the most part, as you said, it's from a good place. It's from a place of admiration.
It's from a place of fandom.
IP. Yeah.
It's from a place of fandom, right? So you have companies like Netflix that are going to embrace this creativity. And you have companies like Disney that are staying away from the platform and are not building and potentially will not build stuff on the platform because of that dynamics of a marketplace, of a UGC platform. Now, I do think that as Roblox becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and more important, they will have to figure out how do they deal with it. But I think there is enough time for them to figure that out and still let the platform do its part. They just introduced rights management, so DMCA submission and application. So they're certainly looking at it, but I don't foresee Roblox becoming too stagnant about preventing, permitting. And really what Roblox is doing, they're taking the approach of, in a way, forgiveness versus permission, right? And also what they're saying is, we will allow you as an IP owner to submit a DMCA, but if you don't submit it, it can happen on the platform, right? So we'll see if that approach is scalable as they want to get to 1 billion people, 1 billion users. But I think that also really applies to the way IP owners and brands are going to feel about the platform and how the dynamics of IP usage is being handled. And I think we're going to see both cases. There will be brands and IP who are very, very draconian and will not tolerate that. And there will be companies like Netflix who quite the opposite. They embrace it and celebrate, right? And I think that will be the range. We'll see companies who submit the MCAs and companies that don't. And there are pros and cons, right? And we talk about it a lot at Super Social about what is the damage of a DMCA and would it not be more valuable to embrace what's happening with the community and celebrate the fact that the community is excited about the IP versus quote unquote punishing them and risking jeopardizing the reputation of the company that builds the experience and rubbing the community the wrong way. And it's a tricky situation, which there isn't a clear-cut answer on here is what the best practice is. And I think it will continue to be on a case-by-case basis. And I think that Roblox will continue to build capabilities and tools that allow brands and IP to protect themselves. But I don't see a world where Roblox proactively prevents its UGC creation community from doing whatever they want.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a core part of what makes the platform what it is. It's digital self-expression at its core, right? And so you don't want to stymie that. You just want to do it in the right way, and you want IP owners to be compensated for their IP, but at the same time, you want people to be able to express themselves, and that's kind of where I come back to. It's a balancing act between the community and the commercial. The last thing we wanted to touch on today, which hasn't come up so much recently, it was a conversation I had as an analyst, a couple of years ago with investors more so, but especially when like the metaverse was this, hot investment theme at the time. could Roblox ever get acquired? Because could a larger technology company or someone else who shares this vision, who wants to immediately build scale in the immersive internet, could they come in and buy this company and take it over and execute on this vision? Again, we talked about earlier how Dave controls over 60% of the voting power. I'm curious what you think here and if your opinion has changed over time.
Let me put it this way. I don't envision a scenario where Roblox is being acquired unless one of two things happen. One is Dave gets tired and he just wants to move on, and he feels like the future of the business is better handled as being part of a larger organization. Or Roblox gets to a place where it is so undervalued that it might actually encourage Dave, instead of actually selling the company, to try and take the company private and grow Roblox in his own vision as a private company until they refloat it. And, we've seen it happen before. Michael Dell, right? One of the most successful take private and go public events in the history of Wall Street. So it's not unheard of. And it's not unheard of for a founder to do that type of move. Everyone remembers the Elon Musk and the Saudi money tweet. We've got to go public,
Financing
investment.
Confirmed.
Go private. Financing confirmed, for a go private. So, I don't think you're going to see a tweet from Dave Baszucki of that nature. But really, because of the voting control that you're saying, Matthew, really, aside from the take private, that I think is a interesting scenario to keep in mind, from an acquisition standpoint, again, in my mind, it's either it gets to a place where Dave is ready to move on, which nothing shows at the moment that he's ready to move on at all. When I listen to Dave, when I read his interviews, I see a CEO that is bullish and excited about the next 10 to 20 years of the company. And very much as a founder, he's very much there, even though he's 61 years old. And so either that happens, which, as I just said, I think there's a low likelihood that would happen in the next several years, or the company is really struggling as a public company. And then either there is a go private move, or Dave and the leadership of Roblox will feel that there is an opportunity to be part of a larger company. I'm really struggling with that scenario because I also don't see who will acquire Roblox and really get what it can become, because it's so unique, because it's kind of such a unique company and culture and ecosystem within a realm of big corporations that are just very, very corporate. And this is a community-driven company. And there are very few companies like that. And the DNA of the UGC is also not trivial, right? There are a lot of people who say, oh, Disney should buy Roblox. Well, first of all, they don't have the money for that now. But also, Disney is exactly the opposite of what Roblox is. Very tightly controlled IP versus this open, Wild West UGC community creation. And then if you look at all the other companies in the world of today's FTC, I don't see any of big tech being allowed to actually acquire a company like Roblox. Not Meta, definitely not Meta, but also Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. So maybe there's a merger opportunity, but then what's in it for Roblox to merge with any other company? So all of that is to say, very tricky situation. I think there's I wouldn't say it's not going to happen, but I think there is a low likelihood of acquisition. I think there's a higher probability that if Roblox struggles as a public company, I think there's a high probability that Dave, as a founder CEO, may want to take it private again and just continue and build it as a private company until it's really ready and polished to refloat it on the NASDAQ again.
I agree with that. I think both are low probability scenarios, but I do think that, the take private is the more likely of the low probability scenarios. It's just something that kind of has always come up with Roblox. And so I definitely wanted to kind of reset expectations there for those that, have listened to us in the past talk about this. But I do think I don't think it's ever going to go away personally, as long as they continue to be the leader in this space. Because we've seen, even with the change in the antitrust landscape, the FTC and the DOJ being more aggressive, Facebook bought Instagram, right? They stayed relevant by buying the next platform, at least for a little bit. And so, I think when you kind of look at the history there, and some other companies have done that as well, Microsoft buying Activision recently, they bought Minecraft, which has largely run independently, right? Mojang basically runs independently. They just get shared infrastructure and stuff for Microsoft. 165 million monthly active users or so on Minecraft is nothing to sneeze at today. So I think if I had to pick a company to ever buy it and there was no strings attached. We didn't have to worry about antitrust. Like, I do feel like Microsoft would be the best place because I do think they would be the place where Roblox could run independently, maybe Amazon too. I think these are situations where Roblox could benefit from infrastructure, they could benefit from shared resources, and they could run independently and execute on a vision. But again, I'm not banking on this.
Well, what a great conversation, Matthew. You've done a phenomenal job with kind of laying the foundation for really taking our conversation and exploration of Roblox to the next level. You know, we talked about Roblox so much and have had multiple guests from Roblox on the podcast in the past couple of years, and certainly we'll have more in the future. And among ourselves, we talked about Roblox so much, and this feels like a great culmination of bringing so many key items of what's unique about Roblox, but also the history of the platform that I believe so few people actually know and are aware of. And I think it only reinforces how unique of a company it is and how unique of a platform it is. And hopefully our community and our audience and our listeners have enjoyed. But I would like to also make sure that we invite our fans to share their feedback about the episode, of course, rate it in all podcast platforms, and also reach out and suggest what other companies would you like us to do deep dive on. We have a few suspects in mind, but we'd love to hear from you as well. And before we wrap up, Matthew, do you want to add anything?
No, this was fantastic. This was a lot of fun. I love going, very deep on a platform, on a company like Roblox. As you said, we've already got a few other ones that we want to do this on. We've talked about Fortnite and what Epic is doing. And I think there's a few other companies that everyone can think of very quickly that definitely will be part of this series going forwards. But I also, as you said, for our listeners on our website, we do have a listener survey live. If you go to intometamedia.com on our Substack, we'd love to hear from you about what you would like to hear more about. So reach us there, reach us on social, reach us everywhere, get in touch. And because at the end of the day, we want to give you the content that's most relevant and helpful for you. And so, if there's things that you want to learn about that we can provide value, definitely let us know.
Thank you all. Amen. Let's do it.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Into the Metaverse. We hope you learned a lot and explored new aspects of the metaverse.